Coming to the sonography, it can measure, but the main limitation of the sonography is it cannot measure the pressure gradient in the IVC. Why do we need to measure the pressure gradient in the IVC in a case of the hepatic vein thrombosis, doctor? That will enable you to take a decision. Shall I create a post-caval shunt between the portal vein and that of the inferior vena cava, or shall I create a mesoatrial shunt? Is what you can decide based upon calculation of the pressure gradient is what need to be remembered. That is the reason out of all the 4 methods available, venography, ultrasound, MRI, what is the 4th one? CT. So all of them can be able to identify the clot in the hepatic vein and give you the diagnosis of the Budd-Chiari. It is only the venography which is capable of also giving you what is the pressure and enable you to take a surgical decision. Hence all those patients whom you are planning and contemplating to treat them by the surgery, venography is considered to be the better standard, is what need to be basically understood. By that logic, venography becomes the answer. But this is all basically the what you call gastroenterology, radiology, DM discussion. So where is the question of innocent MBBS passing out, we will be knowing all these things. At least you are all far better. In first year of MD, Budd-Chiari means what means? We were thinking, is it portal vein thrombosis or hepatic vein thrombosis? So that is the reason, doctor, will be in a total jeopardized state. Finally, examiner asks this kind of wonderful questions. So if you do inferior venogram, doctor, you can see the compression and the lateral displacement of the inferior vena cava. Why? Because typically the caudate lobe of the liver becomes selectively enlarged in the Budd-Chiari syndrome. Similarly, the venocavogram will also show the compression of the inferior vena cava. And there is a typical appearance called the spider web pattern which is seen because of extreme collaterals which develop because of the hepatic vein thrombosis in the Budd-Chiari syndrome, which also can be depicted by the venogram. And there is a typical appearance of how that interluminal filling defect will be there because of the thrombus which is there is what need to be basically remembered. So both the things are equally possible. MRI is good and also the venography is good, but from surgical point of view, venography still has scores more than that of the MRI is what need to be basically remembered. Saints triad, all of you know, diverticulosis, gallstones and the hiatus hernia. Now this is an interesting question. Pyogenic hepatic abscess, what is the most common source for it, doctor? For the infection. Bile ducts are the most common source actually. So 21 to 30% of cases is a biliary disease. So extrahepatic biliary obstruction leads to ascending cholangitis, lead to abscess formation, which in turn lead to development of the liver abscess is what need to be remembered. Now what types of biliary disease are capable of causing this? Typically the choledocholithiasis, any malignant or benign tumors of the bile duct or any post-surgical strictures also can lead to the development of the hepatic abscess is what I want to underscore to all of you. Second most common source for the pyogenic liver abscess would be the source of infection from portal system. That is typically the appendicitis or pyelifibrosis, acute diverticulitis, inflammatory bowel disease, perforated viscous. All these are capable of spreading the infection from the GIT into the portal vein into the liver is what need to be basically remembered. And third comes the hematogenous spread which occurs through the hepatic artery. If there is any urinary sepsis, is what need to be basically remembered. Now out of all these, doctor, IBD diverticulitis come the second most causes from the GIT. Then can hemorrhoids when infected can lead to a portal transmission of the infection? They also can. But pelvic abscess I still doubt. So what is your possible answer for this? Pelvic abscess. Very good. Now let us go to the next question, doctor. Fournier's gangrene is a very important question. There is a sudden appearance which is idiopathic and it is vascular and also infective in origin is what need to be remembered. I don't know what was the fourth option given. Same option. Okay. Now let us talk about the ulcerative colitis, doctor. Can it involve small intestine ulcerative colitis? Generally it involves colon. But there is something called backwash ileitis where it also can involve the small intestine is a true statement. But skip lesions are more often seen in the case of the Crohn's disease is what need to be remembered. Now infliximab. What is the mechanism of action of infliximab, doctor? Tumor necrosis factor receptor blocker. So now the question is What are the two indications for using infliximab in the inflammatory bowel disease? Number one, with the regular medical immunosuppressive therapy if the patient is not responding. The second possibility is the fistulas. If at all there is a fistulizing Crohn's disease, that is second indication for using the infliximab is what need to be basically remembered. Now, I like to ask you a question. If you use infliximab for a long period of time, what will happen? The body develops antibodies against the infliximab and the patient will develop a resistance against the drug. So in that scenario, what is the big brother of the infliximab called as? Adalimumab is another monoclonal antibody against the tumor necrosis factor receptor is what need to be remembered. How much tissue is required for the ER status in the breast? So this was one of our surgery professor's favorite question. If you say subtotal thyroidectomy, how much subtotal he used to ask? Will you take one weighing machine and then calculate it in the operation theatre? Is it 2/3, 1/3? If you answer it correctly, then you are passed out. So in breast tissue, what was your answer? 0.25 or 0.5? What was your lucky number, doctor? So no problem. But what Pandit say is it is 200 milligrams of tumoral tissue which is required for adequate determination of ER status. Was 0.20 grams was given? Nearest figure, let us put it as 0.25 grams. Gonococcal urethritis leads to development of the involvement of the bulbar urethra. Now I like to ask you a question, doctor. Is penile urethra was given? Luckily not given. Okay. Basically, urethra is divided into anterior urethra and posterior urethra. What is there in anterior urethra? Meatus, fossa navicularis, the penile urethra, bulbar urethra. In the posterior urethra, you are having prostatic and membranous urethra. So gonococcal urethral stricture and watering can perineum, another favorite question of the examiner, are gonococcal manifestations. It is the anterior penile and the bulbar urethra are the ones which are commonly involved in the stricture which is formed by the gonococcus is what need to be remembered. 70% of cases it is the bulbar urethra is what need to be remembered. Our favorite question has come. Anterior mediastinal tumors, what are the 4 T's, doctor? Thymoma, retrosternal thyroid, teratoma and terrible lymphoma is what need to be basically. Is it the same question? Neurogenic tumor is posterior mediastinal. Okay. I mean, as usual our people will type mistakes, doctor. So don't worry about it. Now radiation-induced perforation of gut. Here I will take 2 minutes of your time because this is one question which requires some discussion. Basically, doctor, intestinal radiation increases the friability. Once there is a radiation-induced injury, you are having, do you like to do surgery and put knife on a radiation-induced injurious or a perforated area of the gut is my question to all of you. Always surgery carries a very bad prognosis, especially on that part of the gut which is injured or perforated because of the radiation is a very important rule. Whenever possible, don't operate is always the rule in the case of the radiation-induced damage to the GIT. But already perforation is there. You have to do the surgery. Now what are the surgical options which are available for us? Resection. Resection of the rectum carries an operative morbidity of nearly 12 to 65%. And also if you want to resect, it is very difficult to identify that affected bowel, especially which got involved in the radiation-induced injury, is what need to be remembered. Second option available for you, which is a better option than the resection, would be a bypass procedure, where the diseased bowel is left behind and there is a bypass which is being created. Now the third possibility would be a anastomosis, or other possibility is a secondary anastomosis with a diversion colostomy or the ileostomy. So out of the 4, okay, small intestine, ileostomy after resection and then opening up an ileostomy is an option available. But generally, resection is the one which is being avoided and bypass is the one which is more often preferred. That is the underlying logic for it. So, did we override the logic, or is there any logic from your end to present? Yes, doctor. Basically, some questions it is difficult to recall the options, especially those questions which are too anonymous or those which we know very well.